I was going through TikTok and saw a couple overweight people complaining about a study that got published in February that said being overweight is much more unhealthy than we previously thought. This is going to be a controversial episode, but I'm going to try to cover this as evenly as I can. So, one of the biggest challenges in conducting studies is that we often start off with the wrong data. Let's say, for example, I think carbon is actually hydrogen, and we're conducting a study on human composition in terms of elements. We'd be mistakenly conducting that study with a false premise that humans are made up of 10% carbon when it's actually closer to 19%. And if that study were accepted, any subsequent study that cited it or used it as a base would be operating from incorrect presuppositions. Does that make sense? Now you might be wondering what this has to do with obesity. Well, a study out of CU Boulder looked at nearly 18,000 people and found that excess weight or obesity boosts the risk of death from anywhere between 22 and 91%, significantly more than we previously thought, while the mortality risk of being slightly underweight has likely been overestimated. Why is this? How could both of these things be happening? Most weight-related studies use BMI, body mass index, as a measure of body composition, which is essentially your height and weight as a metric combined. There's issues with this, though. If you're like I was when I graduated high school, 6'3", only 140 pounds, you're very underweight and at high risk for health issues or death according to your BMI, even if you're moderately active. And what about someone like Zac Efron in Baywatch? At 5'8" and almost 180 pounds, he's in the overweight category and just barely underneath the obese one. But we've all seen that. He was shredded for that movie. When Ryan Master, the guy who looked into this, looked through the nearly 18,000 people over almost a 30-year period, over 4,000 of which were dead, by the way, he saw that a full 20% of the sample characterized as healthy weight had been in the overweight or obese category in the decade prior. Basically, this group lost a significant amount of weight somewhat quickly, but were still showing up with unhealthy metrics. What Ryan mentioned with this data was long periods of carrying extra weight can cause health issues, which can cause major drops in body weight suddenly. If the BMI data is measured at that time, the results get skewed a bit. This is something that he had said about this. I would argue that we have been artificially inflating the mortality risk in the low BMI category by including those who had been high BMI and had just lost weight recently. As another interesting piece of info here, the people who were at lower BMIs and recently gained weight showed better health metrics. I think Ryan says it best here, though. The health and mortality consequences of high BMI are not like a light switch. There's an expanding body of work suggesting that the consequences are duration dependent. Basically saying the longer that you're dealing with these issues, the longer they're going to take to get rid of. By including people who had spent most of their life at low weight BMI in the high BMI categories, previous studies have inadvertently made high BMI look less risky than it is. Basically, people who were underweight and suddenly gained weight looked healthy, and people who were recently overweight and lost it looked healthy. Simply changing your weight or BMI isn't enough. Your body does take time to become healthier or unhealthier in line with your body weight. So what this study questions is how accurate our beliefs about BMI and its correlation to health really are. And what it found was that when you remove the false starting point of BMI as a basis for other studies, there's not actually this U-shaped curve where underweight and overweight are considered equally unhealthy. In fact, it's much more like an upward trend that puts obese and overweight individuals at higher risk for death. So much so that at least 1/6 of deaths are related to obesity. Now, if you haven't been following along with the world of people who always need something to be upset about, aka TikTok and Twitter, some folks out there think that the word obese is discriminatory. Obese people are a marginalized class, and they're in an uproar about this study, believing it's oppressive to overweight individuals. And that's where this question for this episode came up for me. Are obese people oppressed? Well, everybody, that is what we are going to be getting into today. Episode 49. Hey guys, thanks for watching that episode. If you got some value out of that, please give me a little subscribe somewhere in there, whether that is on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening right now. And you can also find me on TikTok, Instagram, pretty much everywhere, honestly, at AndrewPFM. So yeah, guys, until next time, we'll see y'all later.